welcome Mr. Arthur Gerstenberger. You worked for the co-op for 39 years, and from 1965 to 1988, you were the co-op's general manager. Can you tell us about when you first came to the co-op and worked for your Uncle Harry?
Sure. Prior to coming to Hanover, I worked with my Uncle Harry, who was the manager of the Medford Co-op in Medford, Massachusetts, close to Tufts University. And the call came from Hanover. They were in need of a manager. They were having real problems, and Harry accepted the job. And he came up here on the 30th of May in 1949. And several weeks after that, he called, and I still continued to work at the Medford Co-op. He called and asked if Eileen and I would like to come up and see Hanover. We had never been up there before. So we accepted it. We came up and spent 3 or 4 days up here. And then a couple of weeks after that, he called again and he said, "How would you like to come to Hanover to live and work at the co-op with me?" And he said, "I'm sure Eileen could find a job at the hospital. She was a registered nurse." So we jumped at the offer, and we moved up here, and I started work the day after Labor Day in 1949. So that was the beginning. And that was why we came to Hanover, and that's why we loved to be here. So it was very interesting. It was quite a change. And as far as the co-op in the beginning years was concerned, that building where the co-op was owned by James Campion, who owned a sporting goods store on the right. The bookstore is there now, and it was divided in half. The co-op was on the left, and James Campion's sporting goods store was on the right. It was a very small co-op, and they had just moved upstairs from downstairs. So at that time, when I started, there were 4 employees. There was Harry Gerstenberger, myself, Agnes Gilbody, who was the cashier, and Sandy Buchanan, who was a clerk. So it was a very, very small beginning. It was almost like a country store. There was no refrigerated produce or nothing like that. It was just a real basic store. But from that point on, things began to grow, and the co-op really took off. So.
What was some of the advice that was given to you by Harry and Sally, your uncle and aunt?
Well, they were very avid co-op people, very, very avid. And I think what was drilled into me was the fact that the co-op was owned by the people. And anything that was done in the co-op was done in the interest of the people. They were the owners of the co-op. They deserved the best that they could get, that it was available. And they had to be upmost in your mind when you operated the store. You did, as I said, everything for their benefit. That was it. The co-op belonged to the people, and that's the way it should be. And they had control over it. It was their store. That's basic. And I think that's the way the co-op has been run over the years. It's always been the people in mind. So.
You've been quoted as saying, "Treat people with respect and kindness, and they will be more than customers. They'll become your friends." Why is this motto so important?
Well, I think it's important because this is a co-op, and it's just the nature of the co-op. I mean, you become friends, you know the customers, you know the people, and they know that you're there for them. And they have a lot of requests, and a lot of requests were fulfilled as far as product is concerned. And one of the nice things about the co-op, and it's been over the years, is the fact that everything is controlled right here in Hanover. The management controls everything, and the board of directors. And we can provide better service and better products to people, better than what chain stores, I think, could control, because their main offices are 100 miles away, and they don't know what the people want. But being right here, we had the ability to put on the shelves what the people wanted. And that's why it's grown, I'm sure, because they know they can get what they want at the co-op.
I've heard that the decision to move from Main Street, where the Dartmouth bookstore is currently, to Park Street, where the Hanover location is today, was a challenging decision. People would say that the new location on Park Street was too far out of town and no one would go there to shop. Was that a concern that you shared?
No, I don't think it was a concern. At that particular time, we looked at, I say we, the board of directors particularly, looked at several locations. One was up on the Lime Road, but that was too far out. One was directly across the street from the Hanover High School, but that was turned down because I thought of the traffic and the congestion. And then we ended up with where we are now on Lebanon Street. And there were some people who had the Main Street mentality. They thought everything should stay on Main Street. But it got to the point where there was no parking on Main Street, and the business was growing, and we had people carrying groceries up and down the Main Street in front of the Hanover Inn. Wherever people had parked their cars, we had to help them carry their bags. And they just realized that we were just outgrowing where we were, so that's when the decision was made.
What do you recall as the co-op's most difficult time period?
Well, I think things went very, very smoothly. We never had any real problems. I think the main thing that sticks in my mind was the fact that when we went through the grape boycott and the lettuce boycott, we were vulnerable as a co-op. For some reason, they did not choose to picket the store on Main Street in Hanover, but they did picket ours. And it became difficult for the board to decide whether or not to take the lettuce off the stands or keep it on the stands, or take the grapes off or leave them on the stand. But the decision was made that the co-op members should have the right to make their own decision as to what they wanted. So lettuce remained on the stands for quite a while, and so did grapes. But eventually, during a period of the grape boycott, things got very, very sticky and very, very bad, and the cashiers were looking out the window to see people eating grapes in front of the picketers, and it got nasty. And so eventually, I, on my own, which I probably didn't have the right to do, decided to pull the grapes. And I thought if they wanted to let me go, that was their prerogative, but I just couldn't stand it anymore, and it was just causing too much of a problem. So we did remove the grapes, and then things picked up and we went back to normal. But that was the most difficult time that I went through. So,
Do you feel that the future of the co-op was ever at risk during these difficult times?
no, I don't think it was at risk. It was just a period of something that we had to go through. I mean, we had no chance, no choice. Excuse me. The picketers decided that the co-op was the place to picket, and we should take things off the shelves, and that was the outcome of everything. But we made it through, and we came back just as strong as ever. And the co-op has grown, as you well know, over the years, in spite of the fact that new supermarkets were opened up on Main Street, and in spite of the new competition in the area, the co-op continued to grow. So.
How much did our co-op interact with other food co-ops during your time as the general manager?
Well, there wasn't that much interaction. We back in those days, we had our own warehouse, originally in Boston, Mass, and then a bigger warehouse in Framingham, Mass, because there were about 6 or 7 major co-ops in New England. And that was the only reaction that we had. I mean, we were represented on the board. I served as president of New England Co-ops for a while. But then outside of that, we worked with some of the smaller co-ops. We worked with the Putney Co-op, tried to help them out. We went up to the East Montpelier where the co-op was there and tried to help them out once or twice. But other than that, nothing like what goes on nowadays. It was just the way it was. But a lot of co-ops, Fitchburg and Maynard, Mass, closed, and then our warehouse closed, and things went downhill from there. So, but
Can you talk about the co-op's relationship with the Upper Valley Credit Union? I understand that during your time that that became
Right. Well, Sally, I think, was more the head of everything, and Harry too, with the credit union. I'm trying to think of the gentleman name that came up and talked to us. He was an organizer of credit unions. He worked with Mr. Filene in Boston, Filene's department store. He backed credit unions, and this gentleman, I wish I could think of his name. He came up and talked to us up here in Hanover, and the Hanover Credit Union was started, and it was operated out of the co-op. And in fact, I served as treasurer for a period of time, but it's another co-op, and people really enjoyed using the credit union, and nowadays you hear more about credit unions than you do about banks, and what they're able to do and how they're able to help people, and so it was a good beginning.
Do you think the co-op food stores was able to help make the Upper Valley Credit Union what it
The Hanover
became?
Credit Union. The Hanover Credit Union.
The Hanover Credit Union.
Right. I think so. I mean, the office was right there at the co-op, and people could come in and make deposits or do whatever they had to do as far as the credit union is concerned. It was very convenient. And at one time, the co-op owned a piece of property across the street from the high school, which was one of the buildings that they would have to tear down if they built over there, but it was rented out. But the garage was used as an office space for the credit union, but then they moved over to the store on Lebanon Street. But the co-op always offered free space to the credit unions, so that it worked out very, very well.
Please talk about the changes that occurred in the 1970s when the wave of natural food co-ops began across the U.S. And can you talk to us a little bit about when the bin building became?
Well, the bin building was actually a laundromat, and it was there because it was part of the deal when the co-op put the three spaces together. Prior to building over there was a 4-apartment building. There was a large building that harbored a frozen food locker plant, and then there was another house, a home there. So the home was moved to the street just beyond the co-op going toward Lebanon. The other 2 buildings were torn down. And now I forgot what we were talking about.
The bin building.
The bin building, okay. The people that owned the area where the bin building was demanded to be able to put up a laundromat there. And it was built with the same material as the co-op, so it looked like it was part of the co-op. But then the laundromat went out of business. And it was right around the fall, so we decided rather than leave the bin building open, we filled it up with citrus fruit and sold citrus fruit by the crate. And then from there, there were a lot of different people in Hanover, different nationalities, and doing a lot of traveling. And the Japanese people wanted special things for Christmas time that they could only get in New York City. And other people just kept asking for things that we had no room for in the store. So that's how the bin building started. We started with bulk foods, and the bin was named, actually, it was because of a contest we had. We asked the people what we should call the building, and the bulk international and natural foods. So that's how it started, and it just grew from there on. And then, of course, we tore the bin down and moved everything into the co-op. But that was the beginning. I mean, there again, what the people asked for, they got. And that's what keeps the people coming to the co-op, I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
During the 1970s, there was a big push for natural food products, and many co-ops changed their product lines to accommodate for that great need. Why is it that the co-op decided not to change entirely?
Well, I think we didn't have to change. I think we just had to add, and we had the good fortune of being able to have the space to accommodate these products, and there was a need for regular type foods and for natural foods, so they can get everything they want at the co-op.
Some questions from our staff. They had some sort of personal interest questions. What was it like having your children work for you?
Pardon?
What was it like having your children work for you?
Oh, they were wonderful. That was the greatest experience I ever had. Yeah. And I had a son. He worked in the meat department, and Ellen, our daughter, was a cashier for a while. It probably was the wrong thing to do, but nevertheless, they all did a good job, and they knew they had to, so we felt great about it.
Okay. What was the real reason for putting in the one-way window in your office?
Well, we were having some problems with shoplifting by the high school students coming over and taking things that didn't belong to them. And the one-way window gave us the opportunity to see what was going on at the main floor and to take care of it. And what we normally did is we would bring the child up the stairs or talk to them. And I didn't know how to handle things, but I ended up by saying and instituting the idea that they came up, I talked to them and told them, and I said, I want you to go home and tell your parents that you were in my office and why you were here, and I want to hear from them within 24 hours. And if I don't hear from them, then I'm going to contact your parents. And I felt that gave them an opportunity to think of what they had done on their way home. We never pushed it beyond that point, but it was an interesting thing that one of the teachers at the high school came over, and she had heard about this, and she said, I think this is a wonderful idea. And I thanked her, and I think within 2 weeks, son of a gun, it was her son that came in shoplifting. So after that, she didn't, I don't know whether she thought it was a good idea or not, but it worked. It worked. I mean, I didn't know how else to handle it because we were having a problem. And it just, I mean, if they get away with it, they continue to do it, and it's better to stop them when you can. And it, like everything else, and everybody else says, the first time, when we caught them, it was always the first time, but we know different. But anyway, it was a good idea, and it worked.
And it worked. Tell the story about Evelyn's bell.
Well, where are you getting all of these questions? Back in those days, we didn't have regular people working up front as baggers. All of the people in the grocery department chipped in, and I've done a lot of bagging myself and carrying out orders, but Evelyn had a little button there, and she rang a bell whenever she needed somebody to come up front and help carry out a bag. So that was Evelyn's bell, and she used to ring it quite often. But the employees got to know Evelyn, and Evelyn was a real good employee. She was a long-time employee, too. Mm-hmm. We had some good people working. We had some long-time employees, and we had some good high school people working for us, too. And there was a time when if a high school employee quit, we'd have 10 high school students over there within an hour looking for a job. They wanted to work for the co-op. But it was very interesting, very interesting. You're reminding me of a lot of things that I've forgotten.
How do you feel, or what do you feel is the co-op's biggest challenge today?
Well, I think as long as they keep going and doing the things that they're doing, I don't think there's a real big challenge. I think that I think it's got a good solid footing. It's got a good background. It's got good people working for it, and the customer base is good. I know there are people that travel many miles to shop at the Co-op. I know they did when I was there. And they come for a reason. They come because, as I said before, they get the best possible produce. I think it's very impressive when you walk into the Hanover store and you see all that nice produce piled up. And the quantity and the quality and what's available, I mean, they can't ask for anything more. I know my own daughter, who lives out in the state of Washington, said, boy, I wish we had a store like the Hanover Co-op out here. It's just, I think it's something that, it's something that you feel that belongs to you. I think that's the point. I mean, it's my store, and I'm going to shop there because it is my store. And I hope, and I think other people feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else to say. I think that if they continue to do what they're doing, that there's a good future for the Co-op.
What are some of your fondest memories of the Co-op?
Well, I think the employees that I worked with, I think that was the hardest thing when I retired, was to leave all the young people there. I think when you work with a group of young people, that it has an effect on you. They always worked well with me. I never considered that they were working for me. With me, they were working, I considered them to be working with me, not for me. And they all pitched in, and they all did their job, and they all helped each other. And it was a wonderful experience over the years, and it was certainly a wonderful experience to see the Co-op grow the way it did. And I'm proud to have been a part of the Co-op.
Having watched it grow from the Main Street store into now several major locations, what are your thoughts on all these expansions?
Well, I think it's great, to be honest with you. I think the more members that the Co-op can get, and the more service they can provide to these members, I think this is what the Upper Valley needs. I'm thrilled. I can remember that years ago, the Cooperative Managers Association that I belonged to, we used to have annual meetings, and I think they still do. But there was a time when the Co-op members board of that association decided that they didn't want cooperatives that were doing $5 million or less to be members. And we were just about at that mark, and I said to myself, well, I guess this is the last conference I'll be at, because they'll vote that in. But the Co-op was small then, and there were many, many other cooperatives that were much bigger, and they're all gone. And now the Co-op is the second largest cooperative in the United States. And that's quite a change from almost not being eligible to belong to an association because you were so small to now be where the Hanover Co-op stands. Mm-hmm. So it's wonderful. It really is. It's something to be proud of. I think everybody should be proud of what the Hanover Co-op does. In addition to selling groceries, the services they offer, the advice that they give, and the dietitians, and everything that they do. It's great.
Can you tell us about the evolution of the education department?
Well, there again, Gerstenberger was the one that started the education department, and she worked hard at that, and then it just started to take hold. And then Harrison Drinkwater came, and Harrison devoted many, many, many hours, more than was actually required, to put into what he did for the education department. He deserves an awful lot of credit. He was wonderful. He's a great fellow, and he did. And then, of course, Kate took over after him, and some of the things that happened earlier in Fitchburg and Maynard, they all had education departments. And when things got rough, they cut out the education, they cut out the bulletins, they cut out talking to their members, and that did not help the situation at all. So I always felt that one of the main things the co-op did and what they should continue to do was have a very strong education department. You have to keep communicating with your members. You have to let them know that you're there, and I think that's a big asset. And I think that's true in Hanover. It's wonderful.
What do you believe is your greatest accomplishment or accomplishments?
Well, I don't know as I really accomplished much, to be honest with you. I know I began the delivery of the groceries to the elderly because at that particular time, a lot of the board members that I knew when I first started were getting to the point where they couldn't shop anymore, and they wanted to continue to do their shopping at the co-op. So then we decided that we would start a delivery service to them, and that certainly has grown, and I think that's another thing that the co-op has to offer. And I just ran it as a co-op, tried to get the best possible products that we could get, try to get what the people really wanted, and that's all I could do. And to work with the employees, I think they had a lot of respect for me, and I certainly had a lot of respect for them. And I think an organization is only as strong as its employees, and we had a good bunch of employees, and that made the co-op what it is today, I think.
Do you have any words of wisdom to impart to today's board members or the management team?
Oh, well, you have me on that one. I don't know what to say. I think the most important thing is for the board to let management run the operation. I've had many boards over the years, and in many cases, some board members try to run the store. And I can recall Dan Grossman, who was the president at one time, first meeting of the new board, spoke right out and said, just remember one thing as board members, we'll set the policy, but Arthur's going to run the store. And I think that's the way it has to be. The minute a board member thinks that they should tell the management what to do, that things begin to go the wrong way. But I think boards are very, very important, and hopefully they're all doing what they do best and make the right decisions. Because it's a big business now. I mean, there's a lot of things involved, much more than when I was there, certainly. Bigger decisions, more important decisions, probably. It's a whole different ball game than it was 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
My final question for you before we'll offer any of your fondest memories. What do you hope for the future of the co-op?
Well, I hope they continue to grow. Well, not necessarily grow, but continue to offer the services and provide the best that they can for all the members of the Upper Valley and everybody. I mean, it's there for the asking if they keep putting out what they do. I don't think it can go wrong. I have a lot of high hopes for the co-op. I think it's a wonderful organization, and I think cooperatives are very, very important in the United States and other countries too, because I think people should have a say in what they get and what they deserve. And to me, it's wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the members of the co-op and the community?
No, I certainly am thankful for all the support that I got over the years. There were times when some board members were very difficult to work with, but it all came out in the wash, and things continued to grow. And I have never regretted working 40 years for the co-op, and I hope, as I said before, that the co-op continues to grow and do what it does best.
Thank you very much, Arthur. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
And
Thank
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We wouldn't be where we are today without you.
I hope that's true.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.